April 24, that's the date we've been told by the National Assembly that the budget should be out, but that's not looking likely. More than 4 months after President Muhammadu Buhari presented the proposed 2018 budget to a joint session of the National Assembly, it is yet to be approved.
Yeah, now the president has said it started the budget approval process early for quick signage and implementation. But like an old song difficult to drop a tune, Nigeria has stuck to its tradition of late budget passage. Now, after so much back and forth between the Senate and the presidency, the National Assembly finally agreed to lay the budget on April the 19th and set the date of passage for April the 24th.
But on April the 19th, the National Assembly was busy dealing with the theft of the maize, and there was no mention of the 2018 budget. And just hours away from April the 24th, like we mentioned earlier, the date which NAS says, that's the National Assembly of course, says it will pass the budget, there is no indication that it will meet up with its own set deadline.
All right, we have joining us now in the studio, public affairs analyst Bola Oba in the studio. Bola, good morning.
Always a pleasure.
Bola Oba,
it's nice to have you join us.
Always a pleasure to share your companion with you.
Who are you referring that to now? Okay.
Oh, it's okay. But let's come to the issue here. We heard the House of Rep Speaker, Yakubu Dogara, some time ago say that precisely by the 24th of April, which is in the next 24 hours, that the Assembly, the budget would have been passed by the National Assembly. But here we are, 24 hours to the day. It doesn't seem like all the various committees, appropriation committees within the National Assembly have finished doing their work.
When we portray the frustrating budgetary process in the manner that you have just portrayed it, then it looks very much like it's the National Assembly that is the major cause of the unfortunate phenomenon of consistent and exasperating delay in how our budgetary process works relative to other responsible polities. But the truth be told, the president actually, earlier than the tradition in this dispensation, laid the budgetary proposition to the National Assembly
Since November of 2017.
earlier, relatively.
Yeah.
But in any liberal democracy that I know on the face of the earth, the budgetary process is such that when the executive lays the proposition before the National Assembly, then the chieftains of MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies will then go to the relevant committees in the parliament to defend the line budgeting of every item coming from the department.
Yeah.
We know that even this budget proposition by the executive is largely a copy and paste format of what we've seen before this government and since this government came into being. Now, if Nigerians are now telling me that that procedure of subjecting executive officers to a methodology of accountability, you must remember that you've just spoken, your penultimate guest from Abuja was somebody talking on open government. The only recognized institution for open governance and accountability in our constitution is the National Assembly. And you want me to shock you?
And the same National Assembly, according to legislators, they are saying there seems to be so much opaqueness when it comes to the budgetary process that, as a matter of fact, the National Assembly is hardly carried along when the executive is planning the budget.
Let me top that for you. You know, if that is not perfidious enough in a democracy, to atop that is the fact that as at the last time we had the leaderships of the National Assembly, the two chambers of the National Assembly, talking about how responsive the executive officers are, we have discovered that 85 to 90% of chieftains of MDAs have refused to go defend their budgetary propositions at the National Assembly. This is supposed to be a democracy. If it was in the days of military junta, you know, if we were having a military junta, we would say no problem. You know,
whatever you present, we take.
But the iconic institution that defines a democratic era is the parliament. You know what? I think it's about time somebody like me enjoins Nigerians not to be binary in the way they look about political situations. Oh, because a number of characters in the extant State Assembly, because they are seemingly politically infamous, and because they are cloaked in a degree of political infamy, and we don't like them, it means that everything the executive does is right.
Well, don't they say one bad apple spoils the whole basket? And then come to think of it,
we must remember
is it time?
That is a cycle of 4 years.
Yeah.
We can vote these people out, but the institution is still relevant.
Somebody said once that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result amounts to
insanity.
Insanity. Is it time for us to begin to look at tweaking or rejigging our budgetary processing, both from A to Z, in such a way that we don't even need a situation where the MDAs have to come back to the National Assembly to defend their budgets?
The present system is not ideal, but the present system has enough inbuilt mechanisms to forestall the problem you're talking about now. Isn't it ironic to most Nigerians watching me this morning that the government that controls the executive arm of government, the party that controls the executive arm of government has the majorities of the two chambers of the National Assembly? What do you use party caucuses for? Why is it not that the executive arm that ordinarily has, in a liberal democracy, that ordinarily has the ostensible leadership drive, why is it that they have not consulted with members of their party who are the majority members in the two chambers of the National Assembly? Why is it that, you see, people will say, you know, oh, they want to take bribe me, it's because they want to hold the executive to ransom. But you know what? When we were voting for the APC, did they give us the impression that they would ultimately get to government and all the arms of the party, from the party to the executive to the legislature, would be in discordant tools? Well, you know, we're not going to.
That's it.
I spoke in tongues. I spoke in tongues the fact that you looked away.
Don't sell Nigerians here. The budgeting thing is something everybody wouldn't understand. But the point there is, when it comes to really the budgetary or budgeting process in Nigeria, it has always been the same. But if we narrow it down to the nitty-gritty, where should it really start changing from?
The executive has a strategic intellectual leadership lever to pull, and they're not pulling it. You know why? My wife is a human being. She has her own opinion. She is better educated than I am. You know, and I'm giving you a practical example of my destiny. So if I want something to happen in our family, it behoves me to find a mechanism of first engaging her in our inner recesses, getting her to align with my vision, and when I come out and I'm boastful, she will just be nodding her head. That's my baby.
Because there's an agreement.
Because there's an agreement. Yeah. But you know what? For somebody who, when I was still doing A-levels in a solo, Lacoste, she was already in England, going to some of the choicest schools on the face of the earth. And yet you want me to treat her as though the parliament is an institution that is predicated on our constitution. If the executive wants the parliament to be cooperative, it behoves the leadership of the executive to carry the leadership of.
How troubling are some of the reports coming out from the National Assembly as to the inappropriateness of some withdrawals, both from the CBN. There's the case of the $462 million withdrawn to purchase helicopters, which has already been done, and the American firm has already confirmed that. But that withdrawal was done from the executive without the knowledge of the National Assembly, and even without the approval of the National Assembly. The same goes for the 1.4 trillion subsidy or under recovery and all of that. Is this what signals really is this sending to the local investor and of course the foreign investor that we desire so much to buy into this economy?
Ideally, in our constitutional order, be it at the local level, at the state level, or at the national level, no shishi, ekpeni, no farthing must be spent by any agency of government without a requisite approval from the legislative arm of government. At the local level, the council, the elected councillors. At the state level, the state houses of assembly. At the national level, the National Assembly. Any penny spent without the appropriate appropriation act, not only that the National Assembly passes it, but that a prima facie signature of the chief of executive, the president, is on what has been passed, therefore making it a law. Or in the case where that has not happened, the two chambers of the National Assembly withdraw the bill back and they use two-third majorities of their compositions, of their numerical thing, as stated in the Constitution, to pass it. No shishi must be spent. So, in view of that simple constitutional explanation, what would be your take of money spent without requisite appropriation regimes?
Okay, back to the matter.
Okay, then you took me away from the matter.
But in all of this now, would you say that we are strengthening our democracy because we are getting older and getting older by the day?
The shocking announcement I've got for you, which is seemingly going to sound somewhat very paradoxical to you, is that we are gradually, incrementally building a very robust democracy. You know why? Because imagine what we complain at the level of the states. The governors will send or will go and announce or read the budgetary propositions to the state legislatures, and in majority of the circumstances, before you could say Jack Robinson, you see everything approved because the governor has read it. Because at the level of the state, our legislative arms are supine, largely supine. At the level of the National Assembly, if you remove the infamy of some of the characters in this National Assembly, it is actually very good that the two chambers are standing up to the executive and saying, you know what, there is need for accountability. Somebody, your penultimate caller, was accentuating the importance of open government, alluding to structures, alluding to indeed statutory structures such as NATI, alluding to other structures that are now predicated in law made by the National Assembly. But the most organic institution recognized by our Constitution for accountability, open government, and transparency, my dear sister and brother, the National Assembly.
Would you say that lack of transparency and accountability is what's playing out with this budget delay or impasse, if you like?
I am not omniscient. I don't want to sound partisan. Good enough, the two institutions are predominantly controlled by the APC, But I think, left to Bolaba, I think intellectual anorexia, especially by the leadership of the executive, is more the cause than, you know why? I gave you the graphical illustration of mine. The point is that this National Assembly can be better managed. And you must remember, I once said it on one of your very famous programs in this network. That people, I was in England and people were even, teasing me about it. When this government came into power, some people who helped this president to attain power wanted to help him to have a National Assembly that would be ideologically more synced with the direction he has expressed that he was going. He left them in the lodge. There's always a price to pay for naivety. And the price of naivety sometimes in life could be very scorching. This government can be pointing accusing fingers now, but you know what? The leaderships of the two chambers of National Assembly at a point was at the disposal of the influence of the president. He messed up those who wanted to help him. He has what he has now.
And some experts have been warning too that fiscal and monetary policies are being put on hold with this delay.
With a delay in the budget.
Yeah.
Now, but going forward, because we're about rounding off one way or the other, what larger implication is this delay having? Apart from the economic aspect of things where they say the foreign investors will not have confidence in what is going on, how the economic outlook is going to be, but generally, what larger implication is this going to have?
The budget is the most potent statutory instrumentation that defines the direction of where the incumbent government wants the economy to go. So apart from foreign direct investors, if you're an entrepreneur in any market where the institutions are so dyslexic and indeed dystopic enough to give you a very concise policy framework to plug your entrepreneurial this thing into
vision or whatever. How does it affect you as a businessman? Let's bring it down.
As broadcasters.
Yes, let's bring it down home before we run off. As a businessman, as a Nigerian, as a market woman, or how does the budget delay or non-delay really affect you? Bringing it home.
On the one hand, I could tell you that the budget is sheer tokenism as we have it now, or as we've been having it. It's sheer tokenism because, let's be very honest with ourselves, a population of
198 million,
about 200 million, with a budget of 7 trillion naira. If you really convert it to dollars, we are talking of a budget less than $20 billion. If you break that down by 20 million, you will discover that for an average Nigerian, in a whole year, the total budgetary allocation is less than $150.
Yeah.
But having said that, the policy direction is a fantastic entrepreneurial guide for entrepreneurs who are innovative, creative, to plug their ideas into. Not so much because they expect government or governments to finance their enterprises, but because if they are going in the same direction as government, there will be at least more vavavoom.
Okay, vavavoom, that's how we have to live it this morning. That's a nice word to start a Monday morning.
All right. The vavavoom there is being in tandem with the people and creating a good enabling environment. Okay, thank you very much, Bolaba, for coming to the program today. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure for sharing your lady in red with me. No. And I deliberately came with a touch of red.
With a touch of red.
With a touch of red. Oh, the lady in red. Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you very much, Bolaba.